Before I got into photography, I never saw myself doing it as a hobby, but I did enjoy taking pictures of various things with my phone. In this video, I will talk about how I got into aviation photography and how you can as well. So I'm editing and I realized I forgot to record an entire section, so I'm going to try and see how this turns out. So my first time actually taking pictures of airplanes was when the Blue Angels were in Chicago in August of 2021. It wasn't until later that year that I started taking pictures at an air show. And the pictures from that air show weren't great since I was using my phone, like I was with the Blue Angels. But I enjoyed myself in the moment. It wasn't until 2022 that I actually got into photography because I took a photography class in high school. And it also didn't help that I started storm chasing with a buddy of mine, and a lot of people who storm chase are also photographers. And that summer, I started doing photography with my dad's old Nikon D70S. At that time, it was a good camera, and it was an awesome camera to learn on. I still sometimes use it because it is fun to use. And my first time taking pictures of airplanes with the DSLR was at AirVenture. And that was my first time taking pictures of anything moving with anything other than a phone. And I thought it was a lot of fun to see the results. Now, compared to things I've taken recently, they weren't the best, but they hold a special place in my heart. And since then, I've fallen in love with aviation photography. I've seen so many cool things, and I've also met so many cool people. And now that I've told you my story, I'm going to tell you how you can get started in aviation photography. The most important thing you are going to need to take pictures of airplanes is a camera. One of the biggest misconceptions is that you need a fancy camera with a long lens to take good pictures of airplanes, but the truth is far from that. If your camera has 5 to 10 times zoom, you should be able to take good pictures of airplanes if you stay close to them. A word of caution when using a phone camera: digital zoom sucks. Digital zoom is essentially zooming into a part of the picture and upscaling it. At best, it can add a bit of zoom without changing the quality, and at worst, it can distort your image and you won't even be able to tell what the picture is supposed to be of. Here's an example of digital zoom next to an image that was cropped in from a DSLR. Notice how the one on the right is much more crisp. Now, that can be due to the DSLR, but it is also because the image from the DSLR isn't upscaled. With this, remember to get as close to the airplane as possible. Staying by a taxiway or next to a flight path or departure is your best bet. Now, if you have a camera with a focal length of at least 300 millimeters, you have a little bit of flexibility. If you have anything less than 300, follow the advice I gave for shooting on phones. Now, with 300 millimeters, you just need to position yourself around the airport or wherever you're shooting at. If you're shooting with a digital camera, you want a fast shutter speed unless you want less exposure for motion blur, wide open, and as low of an ISO as you can. If you want fancy motion blur, as you see here, make sure to lower the shutter speed to match the motion of the aircraft or the propellers. Now that we have talked about your camera, let's talk about where you can actually take pictures of airplanes. Whenever you watch people online, they are almost always in a really cool location, such as a major airport somewhere, or somewhere else like the Mach Loop. Now, not everyone lives around these types of places, so I give you some very broad alternative locations where you can see airplanes. The first location is your local regional or international airport, depending on where you live. These can be a bit hit or miss, as your local airport can range between anything from a massive hub to a grass runway located in a field. If you're lucky, your airport might even have a viewing area where you can get right up close to the taxiway. If you don't have an airport nearby, or you don't want to travel to one, the best advice I can give is to download FlightAware or Flight Radar and to just look up at the sky. Assuming the sky is clear, you should see airplanes. And if you have a huge lens, you might be able to get a picture of them. Another place to see airplanes, and my personal favorite way, is to go to an air show. Most of the time, there's a very good chance that an air show will be at most 3 hours away from you, and it gives you a chance to see a little bit of everything. At air shows I've been to, there have been warbirds, modern military, vintage airplanes, aerobatics, and even airliners, although these aren't too common in the US. Airshows give you the ability to see planes that you would have to seek out and hunt for, but only in the span of a few hours. It is also a great activity to go spend a day doing, and it might be easier to convince someone to go to an airshow than, let's say, hey, you want to go sit out on the runway with me for 5 hours? If you don't know where to find airshows, my favorite place to go is Aviation, which I will leave in the description of this video. In conclusion, aviation photography is my favorite hobby that I am a part of, and I created this channel to share my hobby with the internet. Hopefully this video convinced you to go to an air show or to sit by a runway for 5 hours just to take pictures of airplanes. But if it didn't, that's okay, and if not, I hope you at least enjoyed watching the video.